Hello, welcome to my Mech series episodes, and this is part 12. This is Keyshot rendering. In the last chapter, I showed you guys how to export your geometry from Maya to Keyshot using FBX by creating your own materials in Maya. Then you import as FBX, then you could apply materials easily in Keyshot. So now I'm going to show you the techniques what I used. So I have Keyshot here are the models I've created. So you can see I created different materials for different pieces. So if you create one, okay, some of my pieces are hidden, so I'm going to turn it on so you guys can see it. So all my pieces are here, and I'm going to turn on my glass layer as well. So I use the same technique. I brought it into Keyshot. I applied a different surface shader to each geometry. Then I import as a FBX in Keyshot, and I brought it in here. So if you go to the Keyshot library, if you go to project, if you go to the materials, see this is the materials as being used in my scene, and these are the materials not as been used. So if you see, what I did was I literally went to my Keyshot library and I went to paint or metal. I usually do metal because what happens is if you use a paint metal, if you go here and if you go to any kind of metal, paint metal here, you could literally put, okay, let's go through this one, the paint metal. So what I did, once I have my paint metal here, I went and changed the color, and I went to my textures tab in the specular. So I'm gonna show only this part. So if I don't have this texture, we won't have variation in my material. So you could see there is some kind of variations in it. So I want to break up my spec. So that's why I put this map, black and white map. You could also adjust the scale by ear. I said 1.5, like if I increase it, you could see my the contrast between the texture map changes. You could also change the brightness as contrast here, so you don't have to do anything else. And so this is how I created my paint metal. So you could see there's some kind of like variations in my spec. That's what I wanted. So once he created this material, what you could do is you could literally, I'm going to say show all parts. So once you create one material, you could literally drag and drop. I'm going to my scene material file. So you can literally go and drag and drop on the geometries you need. So I went and like, you know, these are the areas I wanted. So I just drag and drop it. So for the black material, so I did the same thing. It's like a paint metal. So what I did, I gave the color to be black. And what I did, I went to my specular map. So if you want to bring in my own map, if you double click on it, it's going to pop up a window. Then I use a different map, but because I want to use a different spec breakdown. So I used this map, and I adjusted the scale, and I went and adjusted my brightness contrast to break down my spec. So I'm going to show you the difference between before and after. I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see it. So here the spec is really broken down. You could literally see it, the difference between the white and dark values. So once if I go here, if I get rid of my spec, you see this looks pretty flat. So I don't want that. So that's why to break it down, so I just put a map there. You could also, since it's a concept art, you don't have to do this. You could do it in the post in Nuke or in Photoshop, but I try to do it in Keyshot as much as possible. Then I'll go to Photoshop and I break my surfaces. So this is how I created the orange metal and as well as the black metal. There is something I created here as well. So even if you double click on the material, it's going to show up here. So there is something called another paint gloss material I used. I didn't use any textures. I want to be really flat. So these are the materials I used on this ones. And I also used something called the titanium. Like I just grabbed from Keyshot library because I want to have different material surfaces on my geometry. because I don't want to look flat. So I went and grabbed some kind of brass material and played with the roughness setting. So the roughness is nothing but if you go all the way to 0, it's going to be super reflective. You could see it's literally look like a glass finish. You could literally see my lighting environment is reflecting on it. So I adjust my roughness to have some blurry reflections on it. So let's go through this surface. I'm going to show only. So this surface I created using something called Mould Tech. So Mould Tech materials are nothing but it comes with some kind of map within it. So if you see there is some kind of like a pattern in it. So in order to go to Mould Tech, it's right here. So if you click here, so if you double click on here, so this is my material. So if you go to texture tab, it has bump already plugged it in. So I adjust my scale, based on whatever the scale I want. So if you go and update the scale, it's gonna have a bigger scale. I add 8. So if I go to 1, it's gonna be super subtle. You can see it. You can literally see it, but I usually have my type 2 box map because it's projecting the maps on a box. If you add UVs to your pieces, you could say UV coordinates, but I didn't have any UVs, so this is a concept, so I'm not worried about it. So you could also adjust the bump height. I set to 10. It's usually 0.25, but it is super subtle. You can't even see it. It looks like really flat. So I went and up my bump to 10. So you could also adjust the roughness here as well. If I go roughness to here, it's going to be super reflective, and you could see this reflecting speck. Since it's a cloth, I don't want to have that much reflection, so that's why I reduce this to super kind of like that. So it kind of have a little bit of roughness to it, but it kind of looks like a carbon fiber. So that's what I want. Like this is even too much for me. So before it was 0.4, I believe, so 0.4. You could also change the color as well. If you change the color, it's going to change the color automatically. You could play with your value, saturation, and do whatever you want with it. So it was black, so I'm going to change it to black. Show all parts. So there you go. So now let's go through the glass material, how I created my glass. So show only glass, so it's only showing the glass. The glass material, what I did was, if you go to the Keyshot library, and if you go to, where's glass? So I grabbed this glass cube. It has some patterns to it. You could see it. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see some kind of patterns to it. So what that's going to do, it's going to look sci-fi, as well as it's going to break my glass material even further. You could literally see it's catching all those details. So once I applied my material on it, I went to the texture map. The bump was really, I couldn't even see it, so I reduced it to, it was like 1 or something. 1 is like super big, so it's kind of like super crazy, so I went to 0.05 because I wanted to be subtle and I wanted to be transparent. I want to see my skull through this. You could also reduce the bump height. If I say 1, it's going to have a different, it's going to bump up, and it was minus 0.04. It's going to go in. There you go. I also, the other thing I kind of messed with it is the two-sided, because the two-sided, sometimes what happens, you can't see the other side that well. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's up to whatever you're looking for. I usually turn off this one because I want to see my skull really transparent, so I turn it off. And you can also play with the refraction as well, how transparent you want it. So if you go lower, it's going to be super transparent, and if you want some kind of have some fake thickness, you could go up. So that's how I created my glass material. I'll show all parts. So let's go the skull material. So the other way to go to your material to isolate is, I want to show my skull. Like it's literally, you could hide the part and you can do it. But what I usually do is I go here, right click, and I say visibility, and I say show only. So it's going to show only my skull. So if you see my skull, you guessed it, I used Mould Tech material. So it also have a bump, but what I did was I kind of like kept my bump really subtle, so you could literally see it. The bump kind of popping out. It kind of added some sci-fi details. So I didn't do anything else, and I also adjust my roughness to have my speck in it because I want to be super reflective, and that's how I created this material for the skull. And what I did after creating my skull, once I sculpted these details, I added some geo on my triangle and the parts where there's bolt. I added some geo, so I'm going to show that as well. If I go to my emissive, so you can literally see these are the another geo I created. These are the mesh. So for emissive, what I did was, if I double click on it, you could see there is emissive material. So if you go to Keyshot library and if you type emissive, so you could see it here. So what I did, I used emissive warm. So I just went and plugged it in here. So if I double click on it, this is the material I got. So what I went there and changed my color, you know, how bright as I wanted. It's not glowing that much. Once you hit render, it's gonna glow up a little bit. So I reduced my intensity however I want it. You could also go adjust. There you go. So that's what I wanted. So you could also add textures as well, but I'm not worried about it because it's just going to be my emissive channel. And there is other part I added emissive inside because I want my skull to get some kind of lights from inside. So I created these two cylinders as I showed in the last part. So it won't be visible from outside if I go show all parts. And I'm gonna hide my glass so you can see my skull getting some kind of details from inside. For emissive inside, I use the same. I'm going to isolate this. So if you see my material, I use the same technique, but I change the color to literally blue and I increase my intensity. The higher the intensity, the less contrast it gets. So it's gonna pop up, it's gonna shed a lot of lights when I have, so you can see as soon as I increase the intensity, it's blowing up inside. But I set it to I think 10, so I'm gonna keep it as 10. So how much you could also increase, you know, how you want, you know, whatever result you're going for. Okay, let's go through the wires. The wires are really easy. It's straightforward. I'm gonna say show one link. Oops. Show all parts. Okay, so for the wires, for some reason, okay, I'll show you this one. For some reason it's freaking out. Okay, that's why. For the wires, what I did was I went to my paint and paint gloss and I just plug it in. So I'll show you what I did. So I went there and I adjust my color however I wanted, and there you go, it's right there. And I also adjust the roughness because I want to be a little bit of roughness to it. I don't want to be super glossy. So once you have some kind of library, so as soon as you apply materials, you know, you'll know what are the areas you don't have the materials on it. So you can literally drag and drop the materials you want in your Mech. So even from the side, it kind of looks pretty good. My silhouette is really good, you know, I kind of like it as well. And I'm also getting some details from here as well. And you could see the glass now, how it's, you know, kind of transparent, and it also breaking the silhouette as well. So once I apply all my materials, break down my surfaces, what I usually do is I go to render and I say my transparent, I set to 4K because it's really good to work on a higher resolution than bringing it down. So I changed it to TIFF because I usually work with TIFF because I'm going to composite my image in Photoshop. So that's why I say it as a TIFF. And the other thing is I'm not worried about the quality. I'm going to give on default. And I get to passes and I turn on clone passes. So I'll show what clone pass does. So how it's useful in Photoshop. So as soon as I done that, I just hit render. And one more thing you can do is there is a free camera. This is the camera. You could use whatever you want. And this is my shot cam. Shot cams are nothing but this is the shot cam. This is the camera I want. You know, you could set your camera wherever you want. To create a new camera, what you have to do is you click here and say add camera. And once you create a camera, you could click on this. It is locked now. If I click on it, it's locked. So what this happens is you can like move around and you can lock the camera. So you can work from this view, you know, change whatever you want. You can use your model. If you want to unlock it, you just click on it. So I usually lock it so I can't like do anything. But if you want to move around, you go to a free camera and move and do whatever you want and pick an angle you like. So once I'm done that, and after I render it, and I'll show what I have. So I'm going to my documents. So it will be on your Keyshot for rendering. So it's right there. My second pass. So my first pass is here. So if I click on it, you could see it comes with a transparency, and you could see the clone pass. So the clone pass, what it does, it gives different colors for each material. So you could isolate in Photoshop and you can paint on it. So it also creates materials based on your materials. This is black, so this is also the material which we used, a cloth material. Wherever I applied cloth material, it's going to have the same color. Even if you see, it's kind of like a light purple color. The purple color is assigned to a yellow material, paint yellow, so that's going to have the same color as well. So you could go and adjust it really fast. So that's it about the Keyshot part about this Mech bus series. In the next chapter, I'm going to show you guys how I composited this image into this one. Let me grab the final image I created for the Mech bust. So there you go, guys. So that's I have it. So what I did, I took the render and import to Photoshop, and I went there and I sculpted. I added some decals and I added some like a barcode and some kind of decals there here and there to break the surface. And I also added some more details on my panel, and I also added some panel lines to break the surface even further. You could see I did two versions. One is using the helmet on without helmet off, because I want to show the difference between both, because that's the idea I sculpted on this project. That's it for this chapter, and the next chapter I'm going to show you guys how I created this image. I also did another image as well. This is kind of like a cinematic shot. I want to do it, so I literally grabbed a render from Keyshot and I did a compositing in Photoshop. And if you guys really like this tutorial, please like, subscribe, and comment below. And if you have any questions regarding this video, please write me at 3dmuser@gmail.com. I will be happy to answer you guys. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. You guys have a great day.